All right, so let's begin. So today we are going to work on our speaking test. Um, the speaking test is the aspect of the IELTS test that assesses or evaluates your ability to communicate, your ability to speak, converse, your ability to respond to questions in English, especially advanced expressions. In IELTS speaking test, a couple of things would help you to achieve excellence or high band score in the test. What are some of these things? Number one, confidence. You must try as much as possible to be confident when you are faced by or with an examiner asking you questions. Try as much as possible to show confidence. Of course, we are not disputing the fact that there will always be some level of exam conditions and tensions, right? But you need to try as much as possible to manage that. If you allow that tension to overwhelm you, you might even not remember how to say your name. It happens. So you need to try as much as possible to be very confident while speaking. It's nothing actually difficult. It's nothing difficult. It's just the questions that you have heard or something about the things you've experienced before or have read or seen or come across. Is just something that you should know. So you need to be confident to be able to speak on those questions that will be asked. Another thing you want to actually hold on to is during your speaking test, when questions are asked, examiners want to see how you are able to use past tenses, present tenses, and future tenses. So ensure that you are able to use the tenses to express yourself while responding to questions. Now, let's look at the speaking test generally. In IELTS, the speaking test lasts between a period of 10 to 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes, you're good to go. It doesn't take so long. So within these 10 to 15 minutes, you can score between 5.0 to 9.0. If you score 4.5 in speaking test, that means you don't even speak English, right? So especially for someone who is a national or a citizen or a resident of an English speaking environment. So the minimum you should score is 5. But I'm sure you would definitely score nothing less than 7.0, especially with the training and expositions I'm going to give to you on how to make this band score. Just in a space of 10 to 15 minutes, you should be able to hit 7 and above. So everything depends on your confidence and preparedness. The speaking test has 3 parts. So we have the part 1, we have part 2, we have part 3. The part 1 is called the introductory session. This is where you get to be asked questions bordering around yourself, your immediate environment. It's more like you introducing yourself, both as a person and your origin and environment generally. Part 2. I call part 2 the main speaking test. This is because unlike parts 1 and 3, where examiners engage you, where the examiner would engage you with questions and you respond. Examiner keeps asking you questions and you respond. But in part 2, examiner does not ask you no questions. Examiner gives you a paper called Q card. So on that paper lies the issue or scenario or situation you are required to describe. So you are to read that concern or scenario or situation raised, and then you also have some bullet points, usually 3 to 4 bullet points, that would help you to respond to that Q card question. So in part 2, you get to do the talking, just you. You do the talking. You describe the situation, talk about everything that's inscribed on the Q card. And for this Q card session, you are expected to speak for about 2 minutes. About 2 minutes. You know, uninterrupted. Just you. It's a short time, right? Very short. Hmm? It's a short time, 2 minutes. But if you do not know how to manage it, these 2 minutes may be so long, like speaking for like 1 year or 2 years. You know, so but I'm going to show you how to manage, how to maneuver or manipulate the time while responding to the Q card questions. Now, the part 3 is what we call the supporting or follow-up questions, where examiner would also ask you a couple of questions, which may come from 3 different areas. We shall talk about that as we go further into the speaking test training. Now, speaking is different from writing. What does this mean? In IELTS essay writing, it is expected of you, the test taker, to do all the writing, showing your spellings in full, especially during your essay writing, during your report writing, or formal or semi-formal letters. You are meant to have your writing done in a formal template. So you are not meant to abbreviate. You are not expected to show some form of shorthands. You're not meant to bring in slangs. You're not meant to bring in acronyms unless the acronym has been, the full meaning of the acronym has been established in a previous sentence. Do you understand this? But in speaking tests, the use of contractions are highly or is highly welcomed, and it's considered to be a show or a proof of your in-depth understanding of the language. What's contraction? You know what contraction is? No. Contraction. Can't. The contracted version would be can't. Cannot is the full spelling. Contraction, can't. Do you understand? So in IELTS, your speaking test appreciates the use of contractions. Your speaking test. So, but in essay, in reports, in formal letters, in semi-formal letters, your writing should show complete spellings and not this. Do you understand? If you're writing an informal letter, of course, this is accepted. But if it is a formal letter or a semi-formal letter or an essay or a report writing, please do not contract. Show all your words in full. But in speaking test, contractions are welcomed. Okay, now let's go straight to what we call Rules of speaking test. Rules of speaking test. So for you to have a wonderful band score in your speaking test, there are things you should do and things you should avoid. In other words, the speaking test has some pros and cons, some do's and don'ts. So here, let's roll out some of those things you should hold firmly to and things you should avoid entirely. Number one, rule in speaking test, rule number one says never give a short answer. Never give a short answer. Rule number two, keep speaking until the examiner asks you another question. Keep speaking until the examiner asks you another question. Rule number three, always speak audibly. Always speak audibly. Rule number four, never form an accent. Never form an accent. Rule number five, feel free to make use of voice modulations if you can. Feel free to make use of voice modulations while speaking if you can. Feel free to make use of voice modulations while speaking if you can. Next rule, ensure to keep eye contact with the examiner while speaking. Ensure to keep eye contact with the examiner while speaking. Next rule, always articulate your points before responding to questions. Always articulate your points before responding to questions. Next rule, do not speak sluggishly just to buy time. Do not speak sluggishly just to buy time. And don't be fast while speaking. Do not speak sluggishly just to buy time, and don't speak too fast. Rather, maintain a stable speaking pace. Maintain a stable and moderate speaking pace. All right, next rule. Do not rush to begin to respond to a question that's unclear to you. Don't rush to begin to speak on a question that's unclear to you. Do not hastily begin to speak on a question or respond to a question that's unclear to you. Next rule. Always feel free to request a repeat or a rephrasal of a question that's unclear to you. Always feel free to request a repeat or a rephrasal of any question that's unclear to you. Next rule, make your speaking session lively and interactive. Make your speaking session to be lively and interactive with the examiner. Make your speaking session to be lively and interactive with the examiner. Next rule. Ensure to always correct yourself when you have committed some grammatical errors before you continue. Ensure to always correct yourself when you realize that you've committed a grammatical error before continuing. Ensure to always correct yourself when you realize that you have committed some grammatical errors while speaking before you continue. All right, next rule. Feel free to make use of natural fillers. Feel free to make use of natural fillers while speaking, but do not overuse them. Feel free to make use of natural fillers while speaking, but do not overuse them. These are some natural fillers. Um, um, Feel free to use them, but don't overuse them. Remember, the primary essence of speaking session is to hear you speak. And not just hearing you speaking, but you are also expected to be fluent while speaking. So when you begin to use any of these guys intermittently, they will do what? Affect your fluency. Only bring these guys in when it is necessary. And when do we use them? When you want to remember the right words to use to express yourself, or when you want to remember the right thing to say. That's when these guys, any of them can come in. So, but if there's no need for these guys, just speak. All right? Last rule. Be 101% confident during your speaking tests. Be 101% confident during your speaking test. Then, sorry, just before we go, let me give this to you. The use of non-verbal communication is highly allowed, but do not abuse them. The use of non-verbal communications are highly allowed, but do not abuse them. The use of non-verbal communications are highly welcomed, but do not abuse them. So when we talk about non-verbal communications, we are referring to expressions you make that pass message or communication to someone without you saying a thing. Expressions you make that pass a message or communication to someone without you saying a thing. So it could be your facial reaction, your body language, gestures, or gesticulations that actually pass some form of message to someone. You're free to make use of these, but do not abuse that. There are individuals that cannot actually communicate freely if they don't do some dexterity, the use of hands, right? All right, so these are what we call the speaking rules, right? Go through all of that and hold on to the nice ones and avoid the ones you should avoid, right? All right, so if you're viewing from the YouTube platform, please do well to like this video. And of course, if you can link or share the link to your friends or colleagues that need this training, you can invite them over. So let's proceed. The first thing here is the speaking session. During your speaking test, your speaking session can be a virtually arranged session or a physical platform. If it is a virtual arranged platform or arrangement, sort of, you will be speaking to someone who is not physically present, but the person is live from wherever location he or she is connected. So you will be given some form of headphones with mic, and you'll be connected to the internet. The person will, of course, be speaking to you live, and you respond. It's not usually recorded at all. It's live. But if it is the physical template, you would meet an examiner right in the test room, right? Whichever it is, what matters is your confidence and your preparedness for it. Now let's get into part one. For your part one, as you walk into the test room, you would meet with an examiner, either physical or virtual. The examiner would, of course, welcome you, offer you a seat. When you are offered a seat, it is natural to say thank you. Then you grab the seat. When you sit, your confidence is being watched by the examiner, beginning with how you sit. Your sitting position or posture also passes the message about your confidence. So when you sit, ensure to sit 90 degrees. If it's a seat that has a backrest, lean on it. That would help you to show confidence. If it has armrests, you can place your arm on one of the armrests, okay? Don't sit one-sided. It shows you are nervous or you lack confidence. All right, so the examiner would welcome you, make some confirmations about your information, give you preambles about the speaking test, and then the examiner would introduce him or herself to you. When the examiner introduces him or herself to you, it is not a ceremony. It is for you to capture the examiner's name and try as much as possible to address the examiner by the name. IELTS speaking test does not require you to say, hey, good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. It's not necessary. Good morning, madam. It's not necessary. Hello, good morning. When you walk into the test room, hi, good morning. Hello, good morning. Please have a seat. Oh, thank you very much. You grab the seat. All right? So when an examiner tells you, this is the IELTS test held on the 6th day of April 2024. I'm going to be your IELTS examiner for today. My name is Benedict Ike. Please, what's your name? So you are like, hi, good morning, Benedict. Do you understand? Because the examiner has introduced himself to you. So the examiner would want to know what to also address you by. Right? So examiner would introduce him or herself to you in the introductory session, which is part 1, and the examiner would ask you, what's your name? So whenever you are asked, what's your name, you have different ways of responding to that question. You can simply say, my name is, or you can say, okay, these are 4 different ways of responding to the question, what's your name? So if you look at the question, there is contraction. What is written here is what's, not what is, right? So this shows that speaking test expects you to show off contractions. Instead of saying, I will not be there, I cannot come today, you can say, I can't come today, I won't be there. That's more advanced. So when you are asked, what's your name? You can simply say, my name is, say your full name, especially the name on your international passport or means of identification. But this is more preferred. What's your name? Oh, my name's Benedict Ike. My name's Benedict Ike. My name's Benedict Ike. That's the second one. You would hear when you attend some functions, you might hear someone say, my name's R. My name's R. That's a bad introduction, right? They are trying to say my name's, but they usually feel that the names here, they usually feel it's plural names. They don't always realize that it is contraction, the combination of name and is, right? So whenever you hear my names are, just know that the person doesn't know the detailed origin of that expression. So always feel free to say, my name's Benedict Ike. Say your full name. You can as well say, I am, not am. A lot of people will say, I'm Benedict. When you say am, this is what you're saying. So you have removed your personal pronoun. So you have to say, I am Benedict Ike, or I am Benedict Ike. Please, do you understand how to introduce yourself? The contracted versions are more preferred. So when you give the examiner when you tell the examiner or when you express what your name is, when you are saying that, you are not compelled or mandated by any IELTS rule or policy to rush your name. No. You are not also mandated by any rule to say your name exactly the way they are arranged on the passport. You know, on international passports, you find a surname first before giving name or giving names. So some persons might be so stereotyped and they want to give the names the way they are arranged. No. IELTS just want to hear your full name, irrespective of how they are arranged. If you can follow it first name, middle name, last name, that's surname, or you follow it surname, first name, middle name, or middle name, last name, first name, anyone, right? but just try to capture your full name. Now, when you are saying that name, if your name is not an English name, do not speak so fast. Do not say your names so fast. Take them bit by bit. But if your name is an English name, you're free to express yourself as quickly as you can. It's going to be identified. Right? Okay, so that's it about expressing your name. After that, examiner would ask you, or can ask you, what can I call you? What can I call you? So at this point, remember one of the rules of speaking test says never give a short answer, right? This is the only question that short answer is highly accepted because there is a very straightforward way of saying your name, right? There is no additional long way to say that. But when you are asked, what can I call you? There are different ways you can express what you would like to be called. For instance, what can I call you? Well, you can call me by my English name, George. You can call me by my English name, Jackson. You can call me by my native name, whatever it is. But I like to give an elongated response whenever anyone wants to learn about how to express what he or she would love to be called. So if you ask me, what can I call you? I can simply say, well, I'm fondly called or I'm popularly called Benedict by my friends and family. But for the purpose of this exam and for ease of pronunciation, you can call me Ben. You see the long expressions and arriving at what you want to be called. What can I call you? Well, thank you. I'm popularly called Benedict by my friends, colleagues, and family. But for the purpose of this exam and for ease of pronunciation, you can call me Ben. Right? So that's a long expression. So once you tell or give an examiner what you would love to be called, from that moment, examiner begins to call you by that name. So the next thing you might hear may be, all right, Ben, may I please take a look at your means of identification? So at this point, you bring out your international passport or your means of identification, and then you show it to the examiner or you pass it to the examiner. But when you are showing or giving or passing it to the examiner, you don't just stretch your hand and give and that's all. No, you have to say something. So let's say, for instance, examiner asks me, all right, Ben, may I please take a look at your means of identification? I'll be like, oh, sure. Here you go. Or, yes, please. You can take a look at my means of identification. Or, of course, here is my means of identification. So whatever you're saying has to synchronize with the action of showing. Very important. Okay, so after the examiner confirms your name on the means of identification, confirms the photo that is there, and the examiner will look at your face and look at it, be sure that the same person is what he or she has. Then examiner will say, okay, all right, you can keep that back, Ben, or all right, thank you so much. Then after that, you would hear, so tell me, Ben, where are you from? Where are you from? So when the examiner asks, where are you from? You might want to look at these okay. So when an examiner asks you, so tell me, Ben, where are you from? If you are from a country that has this information, then you try to factor in all of that. But if your country does not have community, local government, geographical location, just talk about how your country has it. That's all. So for instance, please tell me, Ben, where are you from? Well, thank you for this opportunity to express my place of origin. I am an indigene of a small town called you give the name of the community. I am a native or an indigene, or I hail, or I come from a small town or a small village called, you give the name in, you give the name of the local government, of name of the state, which is located at the, is it southeast or southwest or north central or whatever part of your, then you give the name of the country. Edo is in south south. So let me give you a little instance or a model. So tell me, where are you from? Well, thank you for this opportunity to express my means or my place of origin. Actually, I am a native of a popular community called Igweben in Igweben East local government area of Edo State, which is located at the southern part of Nigeria. Do you understand this? Or I'm from a popular locality called Akoko Edo in Akoko Edo East local government area of Edo State, located at the southern part of Nigeria. Do you understand this? This is not true. Not really. Okay, because in case somebody is now was born. So, but you need to now go and make some research, right? And be sure of what you're saying. So after expressing your place of origin, examiner would ask you or may ask you, all right, please tell me, can you tell me a little bit about your community? That's the community you mentioned earlier, right? For instance, Akoko Edo or Igweben. Then to respond to that, you might want to say, well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm so excited to share this. I would like to say that Akoko Edo is, like I said before, that's my place of origin. And we have an estimated population of about 40,000 persons. And this includes both the indigenes and migrants. My people are predominantly farmers. We are generally described or considered to be industrious, quite jovial, hospitable, and accommodating. We are religious, actually. And our native meal or delicacy is called, you give the name, right? And because we are also, we cherish our culture and traditions so dearly, we celebrate this festival annually, which is called, you give the name of the festival, right? And I would also like to chip in that my community has or is surrounded by a number of neighboring villages, right? And we are just about 30 minutes drive away from the city center. I've given enough detail, right? Then examiner may also ask you, please tell me, what do you do? So if you are a student, what do you do? Wow. Well, I just graduated from the university where I studied computer science for about 4 years, for about 5 years. And of course, I came out with a good grade. I'm currently observing my compulsory national service under a scheme called National Youth Service Corps. Notwithstanding, I'm also looking to further my education to obtain a master's degree at Canada or wherever you are looking to go to. Do you understand this? What do you do? So, Service Corps, that's NYC. So these are things you want to talk about. If you are not a student, perhaps you might be a business owner. So when an examiner asks you, what do you do? Oh, thank you for this opportunity. The thing is, I would say that having studied business administration in the university for about 4 years, upon graduation, I decided to set up a business of my own because I have this flair, this passion to run my own business. So I would like to emphatically say that I am an entrepreneur. I mean, a business owner. So I have a business, a fashion business, or a tech business, or a cyber, whatever it is. If you are gainfully employed, maybe by the government or in a private sector, an examiner asks you, what do you do? Oh, thank you so much. Having studied medicine in the university for about 6 years, and of course, came out with a good grade. I've worked with a number of health facilities, but at the moment, I'm gainfully employed by the Federal Ministry of so and so under so and so body. Do you understand? So these are the different categories of employment status that we can consider: student, entrepreneur, or gainfully employed. So whichever it is that you fall on or you belong to, you express yourself. So examiner may also ask you, so tell me, Ben, what job do you do? What job? The first question was, what do you do? What do you do is asking about your employment status, right? What job do you do is asking about your roles, the roles you play in that job you said earlier, right? So what job do you do? Oh, thank you so much. Like I said earlier, I am a certified and licensed practicing medical doctor. So as a medical practitioner, I clerk my patients, I diagnose them of ailments, I make prescriptions, I do follow-ups to make sure they are responding positively to medications or treatments. And if the situation persists, I also make referrals, right? So these are things you want to talk about. If you are an entrepreneur, you talk about what you do in your business. But of course, as a student, you may not be asked what job do you do, right? Unless they want to know the roles you play if you are observing a compulsory national service. So they want to know the roles you play at your primary place of assignment, right? Then you may also be asked, please tell me, why did you go into that line of professionalism, that line of discipline? So you want to talk about why you went into such area. It could be passion driven. It's something you have burning and boiling in you. You really enjoy doing it. You derive some great level of satisfaction doing it, passion. It could be because of the monetary benefits, right? So you decided to go into the line of business that would enable you to pay your bills, right? It could be because of a role model you have. You would really want to be like that person, like a medical doctor that want to be like Ben Carson to achieve similar feats as he has achieved, especially in the separation of the conjoined twins, right? So these are things you really want to look at. Then you may also be asked certain questions on societal issues. There is no single question called societal issue, but there are questions that relate to societal happenings. For instance, tell me about a book you read recently. So you want to talk about a book. So even if you didn't read, think of a book maybe you have read previously or a long time ago, bring it close, bring it back alive. Talk about the name of the book, how many pages, what the book talks about, and the moral lesson you learned, right? Then you might also be asked to describe the type of school you attended in secondary school, the type of school. We have the private schools, we have the public schools, right? We have the single-sex schools, we have the co-education schools. So you want to talk about which? And we also have the missionary schools as well, right? Has special schools as well. Thank you. So you want to talk about the type of school you attended in during your secondary education. Describe it. Describe the activities, the type of people in there, the population, the uniform, the feeding, the lifestyle generally, the social activities, extracurricular, and all that. We want to talk about all of that if time permits. You may also be asked to describe how you spend your weekends. How do you spend your weekends? Right? So you want to talk about when weekends begin in your country. Different countries have different days for their weekends, right? So you have to establish when weekends begin in your country. So maybe Friday to Saturday, right? So how do you spend Friday and Saturdays? Fridays and Saturdays. Maybe you go to work and close earlier. You tend to arrive home early as well. You tend to have some ample time to have to do some other catching up, you know, or you want to do a little house chore or some house chores. You want to just few things you do on Fridays. If you also go clubbing on Fridays, you talk about that. If you have any special activities you attend on Fridays, talk about it. If you keep up late at night because the next day will not be a working day, right? You talk about that. Then the Saturday proper, what are the things you do on Saturdays? So you might want to talk about doing general cleanup, right, in the house, doing some top-up shopping, preparing meals for the week and packaging in the fridge or freezer, right? Going to take care of yourself, having some haircut or hairdo, doing some manicure, pedicure, or whatever it is, spa, massage, or whatever it is you do, right? Then if you also have some functions to attend, such as birthday parties, wedding ceremonies, housewarming, naming ceremonies, and all and the likes, talk about all of that, right? As how you spend your weekends. Please, do you understand this? You may also be asked, please tell me a little bit about your daily routine. Daily routine has to do with how you spend your day from Monday to Friday or from week to week, right? So you don't have to talk about what you do on Mondays, what you do on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. No, it says daily routine. So you can talk about Monday's activity, all right? From waking up till going to work and returning back home and returning to bed, right? When you describe all the activities of Monday, you end by saying, and this is how my other days also go. Do you understand? Examiner might also ask you to talk about your childhood life experiences. For instance, did you enjoy eating chocolate while growing up as a child? I didn't. It's not an enough response. It's not enough response. Don't say yes. Yes, I actually did enjoy. Right? That's not enough. So you want to find a way of structuring the English. All right? Make it sound, have a longer expression. For instance, did you enjoy eating chocolates while growing up as a child? Well, this is taking me back to memory lane. I would like to express that growing up as a child, I wasn't privileged to actually have come from a very rich home. So we weren't so opportuned to eat a lot of chocolates. It's just something that comes sparingly, you know, because my parents will always prioritize the monies being spent on foods that will sustain us the more. And there is also this fear of the chocolates affecting the gums, right? So we had very spare times we were privileged to eat chocolates. So I've actually said no, right? But not outrightly. So you need to look for a way of expressing this, right? So if it is yes for you, you talk about it. growing up as a child, my parents were usually loading my lunch bag or lunch box with chocolate. So each day that I go to school, there's usually chocolate, right? And when I do things very well in the house, I'm usually being um, encouraged with chocolate, right? So it's something I often looked forward to while growing up. So there are different ways you can express that. Examiner might also ask you, um, do you enjoy attending weddings or wedding ceremonies? Some persons will say no, some persons will say yes, and they'll just relax. That's not an answer. So if an examiner asks you, do you enjoy attending weddings? You should go like, well, yes, I will say yes, I do. In fact, it's something I always look forward to every Saturday, right? Because of the ambience of the environment, the serene environment, the cozy and colorful looks, different groups with their different uniforms and attires, the nice and sumptuous meals being served, very chilled drinks we get in every wedding ceremony. Then the height of it is for me is really the top-notch music that I get to listen to at a very loud level. So you are talking about this, you're making expressions. So you might also be asked, do you think traveling is a way of getting education? It might be a yes for you, it might be a no for you. If it's a yes, you give reasons. If it's a no, you give your reasons. Yes, you need to go, yes, you need to speak deep a little bit about it. Not just yes, no answers, no. Right? Now, you may also be asked, what are the roles of wristwatches to humans? What are the roles of wristwatches to humans? So when you are asked this type of question, you want to think outside the box. So the roles can range between fashion to complement your dress, right? To keep time, to keep up to appointments, for instance, setting alarm, right? It also helps you to take your calls and read text messages, especially when the phone is not close by, for the advanced or highly sophisticated wristwatches. It also helps you to take pictures and keep memories, right? It also helps you to know your blood pressure, the distance you cover during exercise, all of that. You want to think outside the box, not just the regular response of for keeping time. Examiner might also ask you, how do people spend time with their families in your country? How? In the past, I want to use past tense. In the past, people spent time with their families by having their dinners together, during which they tend to discuss about the day's events. People also spent time in the past with their families by having moonlight tales and stories. So they sit under trees or in front of their houses and talk about stories of warriors in the past and all that. But now, due to modernization and evolutions, people now tend to spend time with their families by going to see movies in cinemas, having some form of picnics, going to parks and gardens. The affluent families organize trips outside the country on vacations. So examiner might ask you, so tell me, why do people spend time? Why? With their families? Well, to the best of my knowledge, people spend time with their families for the purpose of bonding. So you want to talk about all of that. Also, examiner might ask you to talk about your dream car. Personal preference. Dream car. Car. Dream car. Hmm? So about your dream car, You want to talk about the name, the model, the color, the shape, the interior, and any other thing. So you need to go and work on that. Tell me about your dream house. So you need to know about the different types of houses that exist. So talk about your dream house, where you want your dream house to be situated or sited, the type of house it is, how the interior should be decorated, what facilities you need, so many other things. Tell me about your favorite color. Don't in IELTS, do not pick a color that won't allow you to say enough things about it. Don't just go and mention maybe pink or purple. Look for colors that would allow for more talking time. So you can consider the likes of red, black, white, talk about them. Then examiner might also ask you, is it possible for color to affect a person's mood? Can color affect a person's mood? Yes. Yes. Certain colors affect people's mood. When you see people all wearing black and sitting, what comes to your mind? When you see people wearing all black, black, they may be mourning someone. They may be mourning someone. So that affects mood. When you see all white, you might look at those people as classy people, right? When you see gold, you know royalty, right? So it depends. All right, examiner might also ask you, how do people carry out shopping in your country? So you want to talk about shopping virtually, shopping physically. So physical shopping, there is the traditional shopping, which is about a particular market square. You go with a list of what you want. You go to the spots that have what you need. You haggle prices with the person. And once you have an agreement, you pay and the person gives you the item, right? In a modern setting, there is also that traditional kind of, you go to the open market with a list of what you want. When you find a shop that sells it, you haggle price. If you come to an agreement, you pay and you go. Although in the modern setting, the payment for open market shopping can be through cash, transfer, or point of sale. That's the POS. There is also the enclosed shopping, which we call the malls or supermarkets, where you don't haggle price with anybody because each item have got the price tag. So when you look at it, if it's something you feel you can afford, you pick and put in your cart or troller or basket. So when you pick all that you need, you take it to the cashier. The cashier will enter everything in the system and tell you the total. So payment at this level can be through transfer, card payment, point of sale. Okay, yeah, that's card payment. It can be through cash. It can also be through the wallet of the mall. Then if it is the virtual, all you need basically is to have a smartphone, internet access. You don't need to have physical contact with anybody. You just have to log onto the portal of the shopping mall, surf for all you need, and then check out. So when you check out, payment can be upon delivery. Payment can be by bank transfer. It could be card payment or whatever platform. Do you understand the difference? So what if an examiner asks you, is there a way people can shop in your country without having to pay at all? Is there a way people can shop in your country? You buy on credit, you definitely pay, right? Is there a way people can pay, people can shop without having to pay in your country? There is payment by when you have trade by barter. So is there a way people can shop in your country without having to pay?
But if someone gives you, someone gives you,
Gift card?
yeah, but you're sleeping with gift card.
Good. So is there a way people can shop in your country without having to pay? Yes, there is. Through a practice called window shopping.
You're just walking around.
All right, so that's window shopping. Right? Now, after all of that, the examiner will tell you we have come to the end of your speaking test part 1. We have come to the end of your speaking test part 1. So we shall go straight into the second part. So at this point, the examiner will give you a paper. A paper called cue card. So that's the cue card. You concentrate on this. Now your cue card is what will be given to you on the day of your speaking test during your part 2. Now when the examiner gives you the cue card, the examiner will also give you a piece of paper, a plain paper, to make notes if you wish to. Right? So on that note, let me read what my cue card right here says. It says, describe an interesting discussion you had about how you spend your money. Describe an interesting discussion you had about how you spend your money. Right? Then, on every cue card, under the description or scenario to describe, there will always be 4 bullet points. So here, the bullet points here says who you had a discussion with, why you discussed this topic, and explain why this discussion was interesting for you. All right? So, you see this part that is giving you what to say. You have to jot the direct responses on that piece of paper that will be given to you. You have to jot them there. Do not write stories. You don't have the time for that. So, for instance, here says, describe an interesting discussion you had about how you spend your money. You should say who you had a discussion with. So, on that piece of paper, you simply write, if it says who you had a discussion with, so I would say, my dad, Mr. blah, blah, blah. Right? Why you discussed this topic? To learn to be more economical. Right? See, I'm going very straightforward. No stories. Then, what the result of this discussion was. Satisfactory to me. Huh? It was satisfactory and maybe thoughtful. Okay, then, and explain why this discussion was interesting to you. So, I learned blah, blah, blah. So, on that piece of paper, you just jot direct prompters. Don't go writing stories. You don't have the time. So, once the examiner gives you about 40 or 60 seconds to jot this, to make notes, you quickly do this in 60 seconds. At the expiration of the 60 seconds, examiner will tell you, okay, so Ben, you now have the floor. You may now begin. Once the examiner tells you may now begin, quickly read the scenario you are to describe. Describe an interesting discussion you had about how to spend your money. Okay, so I need to build my story. You need to build a good story that you will tell, and you'll be bringing these things in. With that story, you'll be able to speak for up to 2 minutes. Else, in 40 seconds, you are done. If you don't build a good story, in 40 seconds, you are done. And the examiner will never talk until the 2 minutes elapses. The examiner will continue to look at you. Right? So, you might say, well, this is more like a true life story. On the 15th of July, 2005, I was able to set up a business. 6 months into the business, I began to make some profits. But to my greatest amazement, I realized that with all the profits I was making or I made, I could not save or even expand my business. Rather, I was struggling to replace my sold items to continue to keep having the business running. So it was disturbing and worrisome to me. So I had to reach out to my dad. His name is Mr. Gabriel Ake. I've answered the first question. So I told him I have an important discussion I would like to have with him. So he was surprised to hear that I want to discuss with him because I always tell them I can manage myself and also make my decisions. So he was very pleased to have me come around to discuss with him. So we agreed on a day. I went. So I sat and I was telling him about my business. In fact, he actually asked about my business. So I told him, well, that's the primary reason I'm actually here to discuss with you. I've been having some challenges and I'm really bothered about it because it's actually giving a signal that with time I may not be able to have a business of my own anymore because of inability to manage my resources. So he asked me what the problem was. So I told him everything in summary. So he opened up and told me how he started his own business. So he taught me the skills or the ways of making savings, how to separate different monies at different accounts or in different places from the sales you make. So you are able to pay your salary, pay your staff salary. You're able to also have money to replace items sold, and you're able to also have savings to pay your rent and other things and take care of yourself. So he gave me detailed advice on how to go about all of these. I was quite pleased and I felt so relieved, right? And then I went back home. I started practicalizing all that he has told me, and truly, they were just um, uh, they turned the whole story and situation around. So with the practice and the tricks he gave me, I was able to make savings. Paying my rent was never an issue anymore. Salaries of my staff I never delayed anymore, and I still had some savings of my own. I reduced my expenditure, right? So that was quite that was an opener or opening meeting with him. He taught me how to be economical, how to manage my funds, how to reserve money, how to save, and how to split monies so I don't spend them at once, not knowing. So it was quite a lesson for me. I was really appreciative of what he told me. He gave me the lessons he learned from the business he started at very young age, and because he had similar experience, he had learned practical lessons, so he gave me the way he was able to pull out of such, and that helped me. And I must establish that the most interesting part of it is that he gave me the story of how he lavished his money with his friends. because he wasn't listening to, he wasn't taking advice from anyone. So, but me, I was actually willing to take some advice, and that's why I went to him. So I felt so relieved and better after the meeting. It was quite interesting. That's all. So you can see that the story keeps going and the story is connecting. The story is responding to the questions. You don't necessarily need to start by saying, today I'll be describing a meeting I had, a discussion I had about how I spend my money. You don't need to announce that topic. Examiner has a copy of your cue card. So you want to talk about a story, start a story. So when you're giving that story, bear in mind that you must talk about all of these things that you have jotted down on that piece of paper. You are free to look at it while you are talking. Do you understand? So that's how to go about your part 2. It's an interesting part. It gives you the platform to express yourself, to speak all the advanced grammar that you know. Right? So that's how to handle your part 2. That's how to build the story that will help you to speak for about 2 minutes uninterrupted. Right? Then part 3, examiner would ask you few more questions, just like in part 1. Right? The few questions examiner may ask you can come from your occupation. It can come from your occupation. It can come from the cue card topic. It can also come from weird questions. Mm-hmm. Hmm? Like what? Examiner might ask you weird questions about technology that you have no idea about. They might ask you weird questions about fashions that you have no idea about. They might ask you weird questions about trends, that you never prepared for. So certain weird questions may take you some moment to think before you realize what you might want to say. So to begin with, let's look at your occupation. So when you are asked questions about occupation, you know your occupation, right? So you have to respond professionally in line with the occupation, right? Then cue card, for instance, I just read about a discussion you had about how you spend your money. The cue card topic question for part 3 might ask you, where else do people lavish monies? Or where do people lavish their monies on? It's still about how people spend money, right? So people can lavish money in clubs. People can lavish money on gadgets, technological gadgets, cars. People can lavish money on house, right? Facilities. People can lavish money on entertainment. So there are different things people can lavish money on. So you think. Then weird questions, you also find a way. The thing is, even if you don't have the accurate or perfect response to any question, ensure that you don't speak off point. Ensure you do not deviate. Just ensure that you are speaking. And what you're saying is still in line with that topic, but it may not be particularly responding to it. But you are still talking about that topic. Right? So you are meant to speak. And speaking in good English. That's what matters. Do you understand this? Now, it is important that you keep eye contact with the examiner. Why is it important? Sometimes when you are tensed or nervous, you might speak or make some expressions that are incorrect or off point. The examiner might express might show some expressions on his or her face that would draw attention to what have I said. Then you might recollect and correct yourself. So it is important that you keep eye contact with the examiner. But no one says that you must fix or station your eyes constantly at the examiner. No. You can always look away, look rightward, look leftward, look upward, but don't look downward. Right? That's negative. When you look down, it gives a negative impression. Maybe you are lying, or you are nervous, or you are not confident, something negative. So don't look downward. You can look upward, rightward, or leftward. So it's not like you're looking this way. So I want to talk to you. So tell me about your first experience on a flight. Wow. Well, I'll say it was mind-blowing for me because I remember I'm looking elsewhere, right? When I got on the plane, I didn't even know how to fasten my belt. I had to be quite cautious and to observe how the person sitting next to me fastened his own belt. So I applied that same approach and it worked. Now, the height of it was when a plane was taking off, I was having this nostalgia, this fear that something is like, you express yourself. You look rightward, leftward, upward, but don't look downward. So you should be confident. Overall, your speaking test will always go the way you want it to go. You, the test taker. You determine how your speaking test should go, not the examiner. Examiners follows your pace. So if you try to be too formal, too rigid, then examiner will help you because they are actually there on an official assignment. But when you are jovial, when you speak in an interesting manner, when you are open, right? Examiner will also open up and be very free with you. That's how speaking test. And once you're free, you can respond to any question. That's just it. So you need to manage your tension. You need to build your confidence. You need to build your vocabularies. You need to know how to structure your sentence. You must avoid making short sentences. You should keep speaking until the examiner asks another question. These are things that will help you to make high band scores. Right? So this is it about the speaking test. Just ensure that you reduce your conversations using vernacular with people. You are speaking your native language, that's fine, but remember, for IELTS sake, to prepare better for IELTS, do more of good English expressions, right? You can build your vocabularies, right? You should also remember on the day of your speaking test, 2 things you must go with are your international passport and a pen or pencil. These are the 2 things you need to go with. Your international passport or your means of identification, then a pen or a pencil. The international passport is to identify you. The pen or pencil is for you to make this note during your part 2. Right? So the speaking test is not a fashion test. So do not dress to kill. Do not dress to intimidate. Right? Dress and be very moderate. Dress and be very decent and comfortable in whatever you wear. Right? That's all about the speaking test. So thank you. We shall see again some other time. Bye. Oh.